Right, let's jump straight into it. If you're cramming for your governance exam right now, you know exactly how overwhelming this material can be. So consider this explainer your ultimate midnight study session. Tonight, we are completely shifting our executive mindset. We really have to step away from things like profit margins, earnings per share, and shareholder wealth, and instead step into the incredibly complex and honestly highly debated world of public governance. We're going to cover everything from sector boundaries to measuring non-financial value. By the end of this, you'll have the exact frameworks you need to absolutely nail this exam.
Now, what's really helpful here is this visual syllabus. It traces a direct line from the different types of organizations out there in the business environment, straight down into their specific objectives, and finally into how they actually deliver public value. This visual hierarchy, well, it's exactly how you need to structure your thinking for the test.
Here's our game plan for the explainer. 1. The 3 business sectors. 2. Inside public sector organizations. 3. Understanding third sector NGOs. 4. Democratic control and transparency. 5. The privatization debate. And 6. Measuring value with the 3 E's.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the 3 business sectors.
So look, in the private sector, it's pretty straightforward, right? You're controlled by shareholders and driven by profit. But when we pivot to the public and third sectors, the whole game changes. They're controlled by the state or by trustees, and their primary purpose is delivering public goods and meeting unmet societal needs. The ultimate performance metric completely shifts from profitability over to value for money. Honestly, if you remember nothing else from this first bit, remember that fundamental shift. It is quite literally the foundation of almost every governance exam question you're going to see.
Moving right along to Section 2, Inside Public Sector Organizations.
In a traditional company, you've got a corporate board that is laser-focused on ROI for investors. But for the exam, you need to swap that out in your mind for a public board of governors. And they aren't accountable to shareholders. They're accountable to taxpayers. Their job is to ensure the organization hits policy targets set by the government. As you can imagine, it is a completely different kind of pressure cooker. Now, to really grasp why this structure exists, you absolutely must memorize the concept of the social contract. In the public sector, this invisible contract essentially replaces your standard shareholder agreement. Think about it. Taxpayers don't really have a choice in paying taxes, unlike a customer who can just choose not to buy a product, so they have to feel like they're being treated fairly. The government has this massive, delicate task of balancing the roles of the taxpayers who fund the system, the civil servants who run it, and the citizens who actually use it.
All right, let's pivot to Section 3, Understanding Third Sector NGOs.
By definition, non-governmental organizations operate completely free from government control or any private profit motives. They aren't tied to political parties, and they certainly aren't trying to make a quick buck. An NGO actually survives through a really strict agency relationship. You have generous donors acting as the principals, and they trust the NGO management, who act as their agents, to execute their vision, all without the lure of private profit. So instead of a corporate mission trying to, dominate market share, third sector entities are guided by these incredibly powerful humanitarian objectives. Take Oxfam, for example. Their stated goal is to help create lasting solutions to the injustice of poverty. Every single strategic and operational decision they make cascades directly from that one foundational purpose. But here is a classic exam trap for you. Without profit as a yardstick, how do we evaluate if an NGO is actually doing a good job? Well, we use strict efficiency metrics, like the program expense ratio. Charity Watch, for instance, expects 60% or more of expenses to go directly to charitable programs, and they heavily scrutinize exactly how much it costs to raise $100. Save the Children proudly reports that 85 cents of every dollar spent goes directly to helping kids. At the end of the day, it's all about ensuring the absolute maximum percentage of donations actually reaches the beneficiaries, rather than just funding administrative overhead. Okay, on to Section 4, Democratic Control and Transparency. The TeasWorks case study over in the UK is a perfect example here. It maps out a whole cascade of alleged governance failures that critics argue happen when transparency is basically thrown out the window. Reports cited compromised supervisory oversight, bypassed cabinet approvals, permissive delegation to unelected officials, and even refused freedom of information requests. For your exam prep, this perfectly illustrates the massive systemic risks of bypassing democratic scrutiny. But remember, political influence isn't just internal, it's external too. The Beeland Airport scenario is a great look at how special interest groups use lobbying. You've got private owners wanting expansion, local commerce pushing for global trade, airlines wanting more flights, and the general public just caught right in the middle. The big exam takeaway here is that lobbying forces governments into this constant juggling act, trying to balance economic growth against a bunch of varied and often conflicting stakeholder concerns.
Let's dive into Section 5, the privatization debate. So as a CFO, you can probably appreciate the potential advantages of transferring state-owned assets over to the private sector. We're talking efficiency gains driven by competition, a lot less political interference, and a solid capital injection. However, you have to equally weigh the disadvantages raised by critics, things like the loss of state control over strategic assets, profits leaving the public sphere as shareholder dividends, and the very real risk of industry fragmentation. Like, imagine splitting up a rail network and suddenly complicating all the safety oversight. It gets messy. The UK privatized water sector is going to be your primary exam case study for this specific debate. On one side, critics are pointing to underinvestment, untreated sewage discharges, high debt levels, and foreign private equity ownership. But on the flip side, the water companies argue they literally cannot invest in the infrastructure because strict regulatory price caps, which are designed to protect citizens from sky-high bills, prevent them from funding it. It perfectly captures that ultimate exam tension. How do you balance affordable consumer pricing against the need for private owners to actually generate returns and invest?
Finally, we've made it to Section 6, measuring value with the 3 E's. Seriously, take a mental screenshot of this. The 3 E's framework, economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, is your absolute best friend for the exam. This is exactly how public sector performance is evaluated when you don't have the discipline of the free market. Economy means you're delivering the service on budget and on time. Efficiency is simply your output versus your resource input. And effectiveness is the ultimate measure. Did you actually achieve the core objectives of the service? Let's actually apply that to a classic exam scenario, the litter reduction case. Imagine a city implements a brand new street cleaning program. At the end of the year, the streets are spotless. Great, so it's effective. But wait, an analysis shows they paid the workers much higher than market wages, which makes it uneconomical. And to make matters worse, each worker cleaned way less area than budgeted, meaning they had to hire extra staff, making it highly inefficient. This simple case study proves that an initiative can successfully achieve its goals and be totally effective, while simultaneously failing completely on economy and efficiency. So, as you close your books tonight and wrap up your prep, I want you to ask yourself this one fundamental question. When profit isn't the bottom line, who ultimately defines what value even means? Really understanding how to measure success when the goalposts are driven by society and not just shareholders is the true key to mastering public sector governance. Good luck on the exam, you're going to do great, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.